if you go into the course documents, there's something you probably should download. And so course documents gives us this source.zip. And if I download that, you'll notice it's got files for every chapter. And so I've already downloaded it real quickly. So chapter 2, it's got all the files you use inside of that chapter to practice along and work with. So things like fancy credits, okay? It's actually, the program is there. And so what you can do is I can right click on one of these, open it, and it will actually open inside this command line environment. But if I want to see the code, I have to do something a little strange. So because it's a zipped file, I have to extract it first. And notice it's showing here that it's an encrypted file. So I have to download it. So I click on it to save. And we can save it as, and I'm going to throw it right in my desktop under the folder Python. Then I'm going to go into this folder, and I'm going to right click to extract all. Because oddly I can run this, but I can't look at them until I extract it. So now that it's extracted, I can go to chapter 2. And now, notice my right click, my context menu has changed a little bit. And I have the ability to open and edit those. So if I want to see what's inside of those, so trust fund bad, we can edit with idle. And so this is a bad example out of our textbook. So all of those examples are in there. So if we want useless trivia, there inside of that idle command line environment is that particular program. So as you work through the chapter, these become kind of an interesting way to get additional information from those. So our problem this week, so I'll go back into assignments, and to end off the spring break, we have the assignment of, we're starting to work with strings, numbers, how to convert between the two. So we're going to write a program to display the cost of a car for a car salesman. So we're going to have the user enter the make and model of the vehicle and the base price. So sometimes it's helpful to kind of just sketch out what we're going to do. Your program should then add on other items such as undercoating, filing fees, and other items when you see. So if you've bought a car recently, they add on all kinds of strange fees. And so we're going to look at those. We total them all together. We're going to use a percentage, in other words, to get that tax. And then we're going to output a final price, the make, the model of the vehicle that they're selling. So let's take a look at what we can do. And I opened up one of these in an idle environment for a reason. So one of the things I like to do is build kind of a template file in idle. So I'm going to strip out some of this stuff we don't necessarily need right now. But what I always need, at least for now, is I always need that input at the end of the program to hold that program open. All that does is keep it from exiting. So especially when we just launch that from a command line, it works very, very well. So I'm going to then delete this, and I'm going to put in some of my own comments. So I'm going to put in a comment that says, this is week 8 assignment. I'm going to put in another comment, and this one's kind of important. I'm going to put who I am. Because if I get a bunch of code in and it doesn't tell me who it is, that's kind of it's an issue. And then I may even put in this program computes car prices, whatever I want to do. And these are free. I can put in as many of those as I want to. Car prices. Woo! Okay. So I may come down to the bottom and put in the statement below. From exiting before I want to. All right. So move that all down so we have some room in here. So let's think about what we need out of this program to start with. So what items do we need out of the user? So it says you're writing a program to display the cost of a car for a salesman. So sometimes it's a good idea just to kind of detail in what we need. So we know that we need to, we're going to input from the user a make, model, base price. So we are going to output final price, make, model. So that's our input, that's our output. Now, additions, I'm going to put those in comments just so I can. So what other kind of things? So we know we're going to add undercoding, filing fees. What else do we see when we buy a new car? What do they hit you for strange things? Well, when you buy a car, you go in and it's $12,000. And what, when you try to leave, do they try to add on to it? All the upgrades. So maybe upgraded stereo. One of the things that when I bought my vehicle last time, they really try to get you is a warranty. Oh, well, let's add a warranty in there. And those are not cheap. They wanted, I think when I got mine, they wanted over $2,000 for a warranty. I didn't buy it when I left, I just priced it. And I could get that same warranty from another Nissan dealer for half the price. So they try to add on. So are there anything else? There's weird things like window etchings and all kinds of stuff they want to get you for. But there may be, dealer prep and all these other different things. So I think that's probably enough items because once we get one of them, it works very similarly. So now we want to think about what kind of variables we're going to need. So I'm going to put them in comments just so we can. So our list of variables, so we know we're going to need a make, aren't we? So variables. And I'm just going to come down here. So we know we're going to need a make. And no, this isn't technically correct. I'll show you what we're going to do. So we're going to need a model. We need a base price. And I might shortcut base price just by saying base. We could do price if we wanted to. Well, if we have base price, we know we're going to have a final price. So we need maybe a value for undercoding. We need one for filing fee. One for stereo. Warranty. Are there any other things we're missing in there? If I read this problem carefully, is there anything we're missing in there? So, dealer prep, freight, others. The tax should be a percentage, and you can use the local tax percentage in your area. Okay. I'm going to say we input a tax rate. So what is our tax rate locally? Okay. All right. And I'm just going to tuck that in there. And we want to do something with that. So what is 7% to our computer? If we look at tax rates, is 7%, the computer's really going to look at 7% kind of odd. What we want to do is really look at it perhaps as 0.07. Same thing. 0.07 is the same as 7%, because it'll be much easier for us to work this problem if we put it in as 7%. So we have these items. Okay. So what do we need to get? Is there anything we need to get from the user first? Okay, so the first thing we're going to start our program off with, let me make this bigger again so we can see, is we need, and remember these are all things we're just going to put in at some point. So we need the make and model. So I'm going to cheat a little bit up here. And notice I've already got make and I've got model. So maybe what I need to do is create an input statement. And so in Python, I can just type input. It tells me it's an input statement. And input's a function, so everything has to go in to those open and close parentheses. And we can put a prompt in there. So if I flip into page or chapter 2, there's tons of examples. And so sometimes the easiest thing we want to do is look at an example. So I'm going to look just back through the chapter, and I land on page 42. And there's an example of an input statement right there. So there's input statements there. There's input statements all through the chapter. So I can find an example anywhere I look. So if I look at page 34, there's an example of one. And so sometimes those examples are the easiest way to figure out what's going on. So what we can do is look at our input statement. Examine what one looks like. So we're going to cheat, and we're going to go back in my file folder. Where did I put that? Too many things open here. Okay, so I've opened one of these, and we know that those are going to have a, let's see, the silly strings we know is going to have an input. So I'm going to open that in idle. And notice I can have multiple idle windows open. So here's the one we're working on. Here's the one I just opened up to look at. Print, 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 print. Well, That's got a lot of print statements. It doesn't help us. So I'm going to close that one. I'm going to go back in. Hold on a second. Open my folder back up correctly here. It's in the other one. So we're going to look at, well, I'm trying to think which one actually. Useless trivia. Let's edit that one and see what it looks like. Because everything we've done already, we can look at. So this one puts out a lot of strange items, but look right up here. We see an example of a couple of inputs. And so one of the things that Python lets us do is put in directly into that variable, that input. So we think we're going to use something called make. So we can just put make equals that input. And so then in here we can put our prompt in. So please enter the make of the vehicle you are purchasing. So that gives us an input for the make. So we can do this very similar thing. So we can say then model equals input of the vehicle you are purchasing. We can then put base price equals input. Please enter the price of the vehicle you are purchasing. And so what that should do is give us that 3 inputs that we need to start with. And so there's a couple of things we can assign. Now we know that we have these variables. So we have make, model, and base price. So we can delete these. We know we're using those. So now we can put in some prices and some assumptions. So we could put in undercoding equals, how much do you think undercoding is going to cost you? $500? Sure. We can put in filing fee and set that to a set amount, so $3.99 perhaps. Stereo, we can set a value for that of, what does a good stereo cost to upgrade? $39.99. They're going all out. Warranty. And so we're just giving some value to these items. Warranty might be $2,000. And then our tax rate, well, what we wanted to do is set it as this. So let's set it as, I think that's close to around here, is 0.07 or 7. Okay, so now we've got all this information in there. So the first thing I'm going to do now, before we get any further, is I'm going to save this. So I'm going to go save as. I'm going to go back up a folder because I'm going to save it right in this folder. And so I'm going to call this program homework week 8. And so I'm going to make a copy of it so I save it. Just in case my computer shuts off, we lose power, something odd. And then I'm going to run this real quick. And so when I run it, okay, please enter a vehicle, the make of the vehicle you're purchasing. And so one thing I see already, when I start typing, notice where I'm going to type. So I'm going to purchase a Lamborghini. The model. And the base price is $10,000. So I see an issue already. So notice I need to put some spaces in there just to make it cleaner. But does the program functionally work so far? Okay, great. So I can close out of the shell or press any key to exit. Okay, so I'm out. So I know I need to put a space in there, and maybe I'll even put 2 to clean up that. So now I need to go File and Save again. Okay, so all of those items work. So now we just need to look at how are we going to do the math behind this particular problem then. So we know what we're going to output. We're going to put output final price. And we know that we're going to output make and model. So I can already do that. I can say, okay, output. And we know it's a function. So output make. So we can look at those and say, well, is this going to work? Is there a simple output function, or do we need to do something else? How do we get output out of Python? Well, we can look at our example that we pulled up. Is there an output function here anywhere? Oh, they use a print function. Even though we're outputting it to the screen, they call it a print function. So print, and notice the color keys. When we use keywords inside of the idle environment, it color codes it. So print, make, and model. That's not very pretty, but I can save that. I can run it again. So input a vehicle, the make, so Chevy, Cobalt, $1. And notice it does. It outputs Chevy and it outputs Cobalt. It does the things we wanted it to do so far. But we can start to clean it up and make it a little prettier. So, yes, I want to kill it. Okay. So we want make, model, and we have to output final price. Print final price. Now, let's just see what happens. I'm going to save this real quick again. And I'm going to run it. So make the vehicle model you are purchasing is an Escape. 10,000. So, a couple of things that went wrong. So, when I put it in with a comma in 10,000, is that a value anymore, or does it become a string? Is that going to be an issue for us? And second, notice that it says, we get an error, and it says, oh, final price is not defined. We've never defined it anywhere. So let's fix that first. So let's figure out a couple of things first. So final price And we know that's going to be equal to something, doesn't it? So maybe we need actually a value above that to make life a little easier. So I'm going to create one called subtotal. And I'm going to make that equal to, we entered that base price. So base price plus undercoding plus our filing fee plus the stereo plus the warranty. Okay. And I don't need it yet. But we may output it just as a test, and that's one of the things we can do is add additional print statements. So we get that subtotal, and that adds up everything except the tax rate, because we needed this added up first so we can figure out the tax rate. And so the final price then is that subtotal times that tax rate, isn't it? Is that going to give us the right answer? So, okay. So what is, if I left it as this, what's that going to give us? The amount of the tax? So there's a couple of ways we can do that. So the easiest way might be to say, so it's the subtotal plus or times the tax rate, which that gives us the taxable amount plus the subtotal again. That works. We could take it times 1 plus the tax rate. However you feel comfortable with doing that. If we're going to output the amount of tax, we might leave it and actually have a tax value. But this will actually work. Okay. So let's save this and let's make sure it runs. Oh. So somewhere in there we have some kind of an error. And notice here it's giving us some kind of an issue. So what might be the issue with this particular statement? So we're saying subtotal should be assigned base price plus undercoding. Oh, look here. I have a second equal sign for some reason. So now let's save it and try it. So those little typos. Okay, so now it's running. So enter the vehicle and make you are purchasing. So a Nissan Rogue. Base price is $22,000. So type error. Can't convert an integer object to a string implicitly. So let's take a look back at our code. So it says it's in line 17 is where it's trying to do that. So line 17 is this particular line. So we need to figure out why it doesn't like what we have in here. I got the, it thinks one of them is a string. So when we input something, sometimes we have to do a little work with it. And so if we look in our chapter and you thumb through, you'll see sometimes we need to convert something. So notice here in this example, we bring in a value called weight. So age and weight. And notice what we do right after we input those. We convert it with an integer function. Because when we bring anything in, we bring it in as a string, and then we flip it to an integer. So if we need it as an integer, what we need to add here is base price equals the integer of base price. And so what we're doing is Python assumes when you're typing something in or entering it that you're doing it as a string. And there's some valid reasons for that. That makes life a little easier sometimes. But we can use this idea. So now let's see what happens. So now we'll save it again. We'll run it. Okay, so infinity, JX32, whatever the heck that is. Base price is 10,000. And so, oh, it says, yep, we're selling you an infinity JX32, and the final price is $18,080 from a base price of 10,000. Does that sound right? We can double check our math. So we've got the program and it works. Is it very pretty? No, and we can certainly add a lot of additional pieces. So from that string manipulations and some other things, one of the things we could do, for example, is add in some blank lines and some spacing. So on this output, it could print not only the make, but you could actually print out something silly. Congratulations on your purchase of a fine no. And so then it would just be a little fancier, so we could make it a little more. The program functionally works, it's just not very pretty. So now we could run that again. And notice now we've just made it a little prettier. So Alexis, I have no idea what their models are. The hybrid, and the base price is $100,000. Congratulations on your purchase of a fine Lexus. So you could manipulate these around. We have the basic pieces here. We just need to make it a little more pretty. So you could add in things, for example, please enter your city, state, county, and your tax codes. So you could do almost anything you want to. This is just showing you how easy it is to start manipulating those. So the things that tend to be easy to forget are that idea that we bring in everything as essentially a string to begin with. So anytime we want to work with it as values, we have to have this piece where we use that integer conversion. And so just out of curiosity, let's see what happens. So we're going to do a Ford again, F-150. something. And the price of the vehicle, let's put in that comma and see what happens. And so even with this, it can't convert that very easily because it doesn't know what to do with it. So we could add in all kinds of error checking. You could add in additional pieces. So you could say, please enter the price of the vehicle you are paying, making, do not use commas. And you could add in an error checking routine where it would then loop back through and say, oh, no, you need to do a different vehicle. But this becomes a semi-functional program already. You might want to check the math on there. That seems, if you're purchasing a very cheap vehicle, but we've all seen the $2,000 cars with the $10,000 stereos. So I encourage you to look at some of these other challenges at the end of the book. Think about how you can create those. What else can I do with that? Are there ways to do things like maybe output, different messages based on a name? So right now we're just doing some essentially sequences. We go through these sequences. Are there better ways to enter this tax? Maybe if we wanted to display the tax, we could do it this way. So we could say tax equals, we'd have to put it down below the next line, sorry. We just got to calculate the subtotal. So tax equals subtotal times tax rate, because maybe we wanted to display that. So print model, and in here we also had print tax. But some people are maybe concerned about what they're paying for the amount of tax. So file, save. So we're buying a Kia Rondo. Do not commas. Do not use commas. Apparently I got a little short there. So that's $5,000. So notice then it gives us the tax of $832.86.000. So maybe we need to find some ways to manipulate that string so that our tax rate is cut off at 2 decimal places. So you can make these very, very interesting. And then notice this last piece we almost always put down at the end of the program. So right now it's way, way down there. So this nearly useless trivia game, we could run it. So all we're trying to do is get these to functionally run. And you can already create a useful implement. Won't return any output. Okay, I'm trying to think of it. Oh, so you're wanting to print. Right, append it. Yes, there is a method to do that. Let me see what you're doing. Oh, I can't see your screen. So you're wanting to put, so you're outputting a $sign. So when you print that, what does it give you? So the $sign is some kind of a special character it's hitting then. Oh, so okay, you're putting it on. Okay, try putting it in a double quote. The $sign. So quote. So is it that or is it a triple? Try that one. If not, use an additional single quote on the inside and run it and see. No, I didn't like that. And it still added a space in there.
And my hands are cutting out. It says /in/in. I can't. That doesn't work for mine either. I did it exactly like this.
And yours are showing up? Oh, they are.
That's so weird.
That is odd. I wonder. Save that on. Do you have a flash drive with you? Well, luckily I do. Brand new, never used. Save it on that and move it to this computer that's got a version of idle and see if it's an idle change. Yeah, and these have an older 3.1 still on. Let me stop this recording and then that is an odd because I haven't seen that. I'm just kind of curious here now. Yeah, there's all kinds of string manipulation, and the other thing you're going to find